How are you guys doing this morning? Good! It is snowing outside, even though we're sick of winter and ready for it to be spring. We're going to be excited about that, and we're going to be excited that today we get to continue our intense, awesome, and awkward conversation about the wonderful things that God made and what to do with it in our lives today. So, as you guys know, we've been going through this series, and we've been talking about how puberty and sexuality plays a role in our lives at 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and moving forward, and how we can live our lives through the lens of what God has said is healthy for us. Live our lives through the lens of what God says is good for us. And so, as we continue this conversation, have you guys noticed just how often this subject comes up in your everyday life? Like, it comes up in music that we listen to. It comes up in the TV shows that we watch. It comes up in the movies we watch, in the books we read, and in the hallways at school. It comes up everywhere. It comes up on the YouTube channels that we watch. How can we not get away from this topic of sex anywhere else in our lives? It's everywhere. And see, what I want you to recognize as we talk about this is how casually our world talks about this. Like, it's not even a big deal at all. It's casual. Sex and sexual activity seem like casual parts of our world. And let me kind of define my terms here for the rest of this talk. Okay, when I talk about sexual activity, I mean, it doesn't have to just be sex. It's anything that you do with another person that expresses your sexual feelings. So any kind of touching, kissing, anything that's sexual in nature when it comes to another person, this is sexual activity. So that's when I'm saying that this morning, I want you to understand that's the broadest sense of the word. Sexual activity and sex. It's treated with such casualness in our culture today. Casualness isn't a word. Casualty sounds wrong. So just casual, like it's it's treated casually. Thank you. It's treated casually in our world. And so I think that God designed it for a reason. We talked about this last week, and so let's get into this a little bit deeper today. I mean, I don't know if you're like me when I was your age growing up. I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up, my parents took us to church every week. My dad was actually in ministry, so I didn't really have a choice. I had to be there because my whole family was there. And so I was in church. I actually grew up going to a Christian school my entire life. So I didn't go to public school. I wasn't homeschooled. I went to a private Christian school. I graduated with 43 people in my class, so it was fairly small. But even in that bubbly Christian environment, this came up all the time in ways that were not God-honoring. Okay? So I can tell you from my own personal experience being your age that I know this comes up a lot. And probably kids nowadays know more about this than I did when I was your age because of smartphones. And you guys don't go to a Christian high school or a Christian middle school or a Christian intermediate school. So I can only imagine how this conversation comes up in your daily life. And it's treated casually. But here's what I want you to recognize, is that sex isn't as simple as the world says it is. It is not just a physical act. In fact, there are emotional and spiritual ties that happen with this activity. Now, we may not see it, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. Now, you can't see the wind, but you know that it's there, right? Or what are other things that you can't see, but you know are there? Shout it out. Air. Ghosts. Okay. God. Yes, there you go. That's a good one. Thunder. You can't see that. You can see lightning, technically, but that's a good one. What else?
Gravity.
Gravity. You can't see gravity, but it works, right? I mean, just try and walk off this ledge. It'll work, right? You'll feel it in your face when it's kissing the floor. So gravity is the thing. It works. Now, the same is true with sex. When we engage in sexual activity, it is not something just physical that's happening. There's something emotional that's happening. There's something spiritual that's happening. And God designed it that way. Here's what's cool, is when you engage in that activity with somebody else under the terms that God laid out, which is a committed married relationship between a man and a woman, when that happens, those spiritual and emotional ties that you've started together earlier in your relationship are now cemented together in marriage through the act of sex in a way that was never meant to be torn apart. So when we do that before we've agreed and committed our lives to somebody for the rest of our lives through marriage and stood up in front of our friends and family and said, I do, when we engage in sexual activity before then, what we do is we get tied up before our emotions and our spiritual lives are ready for it. And I'm not naive enough to think that you guys are so young that none of you have experienced this before. But some of you have, some of you haven't. But what happens is you get this like special attachment to that person. And then when it ends, it hurts really, really bad. And you feel like you can't leave that person even if you know they're not good for you, because you've done something physical and you feel tied to that person. And so this is such a huge deal, because whenever sex is used outside of the boundaries that God planned for it to, you will get hurt. And if you don't get hurt in the moment, if you have learned to turn off your emotions when it comes to this, which is what happens when we live in a culture that treats sex casually, we learn to shut off our emotions when it comes to this, then what happens is we make it not a big deal, and then we can't actually access those emotions to feel deeply towards anybody anymore. Because slowly we've just allowed ourselves to become numb to what the physical act is doing on the inside. So this is a huge deal. This is a really important issue. And this is why I want to talk about it with you guys this morning. And this is why Paul, in his letter to the Corinthian church, says it this way. He says in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, run from sexual sin. No other sin so clearly affects the body as this one does. For sexual immorality is a sin against your own body. When he's saying this, I like how he says run. It's like an imperative statement. You guys, you're in English class, right? You know what imperative statements are? Imperative statements is like, it's a sentence with a period on the end, but it's a command. Like, he doesn't just say, like, try to avoid this, or just try to stay away, just try not to think about it. He says, run from it, okay? I'm going to count to 3, and now I want to hear you guys say, run, okay? 1, 2, 3. Run! He wants you to, 1, 2, 3. Run! From sexual sin, okay? Does he want you to just kind of like walk slowly away and keep looking as you're walking away? Or does he want you to run from sexual sin? Okay, that's silly, but listen, this is so important because we forget this. Most of the time we leave church and we go into our schools, and maybe not at your age, but maybe by the time you get to high school, if you have numbed yourself to this, truth, then this will wreck your life in more ways than you are prepared to handle, and I can promise you that. So we're not up here just trying to take away fun. We're not up here just trying to dictate what you should do for your lives. We're trying to save you from heartache, because this is the way that God designed this to play out. When we treat sex casually, we're hurting both ourselves and others. When we treat sexual activity casually, we will be hurt deeply. This is such a huge deal. And even if you don't think you will be hurt deeply, boys, this is especially for you. And as you grow into men, you are to treat the other person with dignity. You are to treat the other person with respect. You are to treat the other person in such a way that you don't take away something that is not yours to take. So that you don't cause hurt towards somebody else that maybe you're prepared to take, but they aren't. It's so important. This gets twisted so much, and it causes so much pain. When we treat sexual activity casually, we will be hurt deeply. So I've got a little illustration. If you guys want to go ahead and bring those up for me, that'd be awesome. When we make choices that treat sex casually, what we do is we if we're going to continue to use Paul's terms from 1 Corinthians 6, what we do is we start to run towards sexual sin. So you can put that one over here on this side. That'd be awesome. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Give these guys a hand. Yeah. They're so strong. So strong. So what happens is when we treat sex casually and we start to act like it doesn't matter, it's not a big deal, what we start to do is we start doing the opposite of what Paul says, and we start running towards what he calls sexual sin. We run towards the things that are going to hurt us the most. That's what happens when we treat sex casually. But the opposite is also true. If you choose to do what Paul says, and you choose to run from sexual sin, then what you are running towards is, can you guys read it? So if we treat sex casually like everybody else does, we run towards what? Okay, if we treat sex the way that Paul says, and we run from sexual sin, we are running towards. Good job. So it's not just, you can't just sit in the middle. It's not a neutral issue. You are doing one or the other. You are either running towards this, or you are running towards this. And the way that you run towards this starts with stuff that has nothing to do with this. Do you guys hear me? Starting to run towards sexual integrity has nothing to do with your sexual lives. Starting to run towards sexual integrity starts with the way that you pursue Jesus. If you don't pursue Him, you will more naturally default to every other voice that is speaking into your life. You guys read me loud and clear on that? It doesn't start with this. We get ourselves in trouble with this when we've forgotten that sexual integrity just begins with integrity. The way you treat, the way you value other people, the way you manage your thought lives will either reflect integrity or it won't. There is no neutral ground. It's kind of like gravity. If I were to throw my phone up in the air, it won't just stop in the air, will it? It's either using the momentum from me throwing it to go up, or it's coming down, right? And it will come down a lot easier than it will going up, right? We have to try to go towards integrity. But if we don't try, if we don't do anything, gravity will take hold and we will fall towards sin every time. So, when we treat sex casually, we'll be hurt deeply because God made sex and sexual things matter. It is not just a physical act. It is not just no big deal. It carries with it implications that will stay with us the rest of our lives. Now, and hear me say this. If you have already run towards this, which, judging by your age, this wouldn't be uncommon, okay? So I am not shaming you. If you have some of this in your life, if you've already started to run toward this, if you've already been exposed to something on your phone or on some other kind of computer, or if you have been tempted in areas that are like this, or if your thought life gravitates towards things like this, you are not, you don't need to be ashamed. You may have some guilt, but there's a big difference between guilt and shame. So let me explain this. Guilt is good. It's kind of like pain, right? Pain's not good, but it's a good thing that we feel it, because when we feel pain, it teaches us, to stop doing that. If I put my hand on a hot stove and it hurts, I don't just sit there and leave my hand there. The pain lets my brain know that I need to pull my hand away fast, right? Okay, that's guilt. Guilt is not bad, okay? Guilt actually signals our brain that we need to do something different. We need to stop, back up, and take a different course. Okay, maybe even ask forgiveness. But shame is identity terms. Shame is saying, I am a shameful person because of something that I've done. And that's not true. Because of the blood of Jesus that has washed this away, okay? The blood of Jesus has taken that away. All the things, this is crazy. All the things you have ever done or ever will do, God already knows about it. And He has chosen to take that away because of Jesus. The blood on the cross wipes that clean. He washes you white as snow. So don't feel shame. But if you have experienced this, then you probably know some of the hurt I'm talking about. If you have experienced this, then I implore you, don't just keep it hidden in the dark. Because when you do, it comes back and it bites you later. When things are in the light, it has no power. So because God made sex, sexual things matter. So first of all, as you guys leave today, I want you to remember, you can run from the world's view of casual sex. And you can run towards sexual integrity, but not just sexual integrity. You can just run towards integrity. Run towards Jesus. Pursue Him with your life. Pursue Him with your thoughts. Pursue Him with your prayers. We just did a series about prayer before this one. If you're not praying regularly, you're not pursuing this. Pursue God through prayer. Pursue God through each other. You were never meant to just handle all of this on your own. You need accountability. You need people in your life. We can run towards God's plan for sexual things in our lives. So as you guys get ready to go to your groups, I want you to think about this question. What's one message about sex that I'm getting from the world around me? I want you to think about one message. If you were to think about the message that you hear the most about sex from the world around you, what would it be? I want to pray, and you guys can go to your small groups.